Can a complicated relationship ever truly work out? It's something many of us have wondered at one point or another. Sometimes, we find ourselves deeply connected to someone, but that connection is far from simple. Things feel unsettled. There's love, but there's also confusion. You care, but you're also exhausted. It's not always clear whether the relationship is just going through a difficult phase, or if it's simply not built to last. In this video, we'll explore that question in depth. What makes a relationship complicated in the first place? Why do we stay, even when it hurts? And more importantly, can something this tangled ever become something stable, respectful, and genuinely fulfilling? Let's take a closer look. 1. Understanding what complicated really means. When people say they're in a complicated relationship, they usually don't mean that in a light or casual way. It's not just about a few misunderstandings or different opinions. Most relationships have those, and they're part of learning and growing together. What we're talking about here is something different. A complicated relationship often feels emotionally unclear. You might not be sure where you stand with the other person, or where the relationship is headed. There may be moments of deep connection, followed by sudden distance or silence. Sometimes it's one-sided affection. Sometimes there's a lack of communication. Maybe one person wants more than the other is willing to give. Or perhaps you're both in love, but the timing just isn't right. In many cases, it's all of the above. It's not always dramatic. But it's often confusing. And when the relationship keeps pulling you in, even though you know something feels off, that's when it starts to feel truly complicated. 2. Why do people stay in these relationships? If things are so difficult, why don't people just walk away? Well, as you might guess, it's not that simple. One reason people stay is emotional investment. When you've spent months, or even years, with someone, you become attached. You've shared memories, built routines, and imagined a future together. That history carries weight. Another reason is hope. Even when things are rough, we often hold on to the belief that they'll improve. Maybe if we're just a little more patient. Maybe if they finally open up. Maybe after the next conversation, things will change. Then there's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear that walking away might mean losing something special, even if that something isn't working right now. And for some people, especially in relationships that involve strong emotional ups and downs, there's a kind of pull that's hard to explain. The emotional intensity can create a bond that feels unbreakable, even if it's not healthy or sustainable. All of these things make it difficult to leave. Even when deep down, you know something isn't quite right. 3. Can complicated relationships actually improve? So here's the big question. Can a complicated relationship ever work out? The short answer is yes, it can. But, and this is important, it depends on a few key things. First, both people have to be aware that the relationship is struggling. If only one person sees the issue, or if one person constantly brushes it aside, change isn't likely to happen. It takes mutual effort. One person can't carry the entire relationship on their shoulders. Second, there has to be honest communication. And not just occasional check-ins, but real, open, sometimes uncomfortable conversations about what's not working. If there's no room for truth, there's no room for progress. And third, both people need to be willing to grow. That might mean addressing emotional habits, healing from past wounds, or changing how you respond to conflict. It could involve therapy either together or individually, or simply being more intentional in how you show up for each other. When both people are willing to face the issues head-on and commit to building something better, even a complicated relationship can evolve into something strong. But without that effort on both sides, things usually stay stuck or slowly fall apart. 4. When things probably won't work out. Now, it's also important to be honest about the other side of this. There are some situations where a complicated relationship is unlikely to get better, no matter how much time you give it, or how hard you try. If one person is always chasing and the other is always pulling away, that imbalance becomes draining. If there's repeated dishonesty, or emotional manipulation, or a refusal to acknowledge hurt, that's not just complicated. That's unhealthy. Sometimes people say they'll change, but their actions don't follow. Sometimes, no matter how much love there is, you just want different things in life. You might want a stable, committed relationship. The other person might not be ready, or simply unwilling, to offer that. You might be trying to build a future, while they're still stuck in the past. And when that mismatch goes on too long, it starts to chip away at your sense of peace, and even your sense of self. It's hard to accept, but sometimes love just isn't enough to hold two people together. Especially when the relationship is based more on hope than reality. 5. What if the timing is the real problem? There's also something else to consider: timing. In many complicated relationships, timing plays a huge role. Maybe you met the right person at the wrong moment. One of you was going through a breakup, or starting a new career, or moving to a new city. And suddenly, everything felt rushed or unfinished. In those cases, it's not that the connection was wrong. It's just that life was moving in a different direction. And that makes everything harder. Now, some couples do find their way back to each other later, when things have settled, or when they've both grown individually. But that doesn't always happen. And holding on to maybe someday can prevent you from living fully right now. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let go, even if part of you wants to hold on. So, can a complicated relationship work out? It depends. It depends on the people involved, their willingness to grow, and the foundation they're trying to build on. Love alone isn't enough. What really matters is mutual effort, respect, communication, and emotional responsibility. If you're in a complicated relationship right now, ask yourself: are we both trying to make this better? Do we listen to each other? Do I feel emotionally safe here? And do I still feel like myself in this relationship, or have I lost that somewhere along the way? Not every complicated relationship needs to end. But not everyone should continue either. Whatever you decide, make sure it comes from a place of clarity, not fear. From self-respect, not pressure. And above all, from truth. Because at the end of the day, relationships don't need to be perfect. But they shouldn't be hurting more than they're healing.